Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tempest Psychology, and this is my first episode in a new series about people's pandemic experiences. What gave me the idea for this series is that I've seen a lot of podcasts or news articles, just TV talk shows and things where they're always talking to celebrities or comedians or intellectual people about their opinions on the pandemic, what they've been through, and not that these people don't have something to give to the conversation, but really I think that the voices of regular people is getting lost within all of this. So I want us to try and reclaim that space for ourselves and give a voice to the voiceless, because there's been a lack of coverage about what we as individuals have been through. And now these interviews are, I'm going to do them with compassion and good humor. Um, the focus isn't going to be on politics, nor will it be on the science, which has obviously changed quite a lot over the time. And, it's not going to be about government bashing or Fauci bashing or anything like that. I just want to find out what are people's experiences as they've gone through the pandemic. And basically how we're now at the other side of it, and how have their lives changed. So today I'm going to be interviewing somebody who I met on TikTok, and I've just seen a bunch of her content, and his stories always made me laugh. So I thought, you know what, I'll approach this person and see if they want to take part in my series. And she kindly agreed to be my first participant. And because, as you know, a lot of people, there's a trepidation for people in taking part in something like this, particularly where I don't have anything yet to show people that I could be trusted as an interviewer and that we can have a good time doing it. So gvizzle, that's her user handle, kindly decided to jump in at the deep end for me. And I think we had a really fun, entertaining conversation. We covered quite a lot of aspects of the pandemic and what she's been through. And I hope you'll enjoy that journey with us. We do veer off topic occasionally, and we talk about random things. I've left a lot of that in just because I think it's funny and it adds a bit of personality to the video. And I hope you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it and you want to see more content like that, then obviously please like and subscribe. I'm going to be releasing these probably once every week or other week. And there's not going to be a strict release schedule for this, because it's all about whenever people can fit me into their busy lives. And even though we spent most of our time locked down, life can still be pretty busy. Sit back and enjoy. Thanks for coming.
Did you hear that as well? The recording in progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, very intimidating.
Subtle.
So do you have any social media accounts or businesses or anything you want to plug at the start?
TikTok is the my big social media account, and through there I promote t-shirts that I sell now on Redbubble with all the witty things I say on TikTok. So so that's about it. gvizzle_74 on both.
There must be quite a cool little niche market for that as well.
It is. It's surprising. It's very surprising. I don't have social media. TikTok is the only social media account that I have. I've never gravitated towards Facebook or Twitter or anything. So, and I don't read blogs. So just to know that there's people out there who are interested is a mind-boggling experience for me. So whenever I get a t-shirt sale, I'm like, no way. I can't believe there's someone right now in Ireland wearing a shirt with something stupid I said online. And that
it is fantastic, isn't it? I honestly,
it's amazing.
I had no idea that TikTok was going to be like this, because I'd only ever heard, people on podcasts talk about it or the media whine about it and stuff. I didn't think it would be so cool.
No, I didn't think so either. And when I first started, it was really just dog videos for me. And now it's just opened up a whole new world. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, you can find your long lost twin sisters when you're 5 years apart.
Exactly. Yeah. Who knew? The magical world.
That's amazing. So I guess like the easiest question to ask is about people's pandemic experiences. It would be, how has your life changed before the pandemic to now?
Interestingly, not a ton. And I actually I almost felt guilty at the beginning of the pandemic when people got into lockdown. Because just to give you a background, I've been working from home for about 8 years. I used to go into the office once a week. I am a fairly introverted person who really just wants to hang out with my dogs and husband. So when when we couldn't do things, it just didn't really change for me. So I saw some friends of mine struggling because they were extroverts and they wanted to get out, and I was just like, oh, it's business as usual. Some certainly things have changed, but not as drastically as I think it has for some. So I consider myself very lucky in that respect.
Yeah, it's I think one of the keys is the fact that, both of us have worked from home kind of thing, and just I'm an introvert myself as well, which is funny that we're both on social media.
The only social interaction I get is
yeah, exactly.
And that's fine.
Yeah, and actually I quite liked it that when I had to leave the house and there would be no one around.
Yeah.
And I could just go about what I need to do and not be hassled. It was
I quite enjoy that. I'm hoping that when it's all over, we still maintain that 6-foot social distance, because it's really nice not to feel someone's breath on my neck at the grocery store. So I very much enjoyed that.
And just that nobody wants to shake your hand anymore, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I missed hugs for a while, with my family, of course. But it was also weird because we got we have 2 dogs, and one of them was quite young when the pandemic started. So that normal socialization that we would have had, he didn't get, because we would see people and it was like everybody was a ne'er-do-well because we would cross the street to get away from people. And so the poor dog, he doesn't understand logic. So I can't explain to him, we don't need to get the cooties. So he just is a bit weird around people and dogs now because he didn't get that socialization when he was younger.
And how's it impacted his development having you around all the time? Because I guess if you've worked from home anyway, it might not have impacted that.
When we first brought him home, I was still leaving the house once a week. So he was accustomed to being alone at home. And we have our second dog, or our first dog, was a bit older. So she was just happy to see us go. Like, it's almost nature nurture. She's very much like me. She's like, get out of the house. But the younger guy got used to it. And then when I started being at home, now, if I check the mail when I come home, he's just like, I never thought you were coming back. So we have to be a bit more cautious with him when we leave and the timing that we're gone. I'm not sure if this will make it better or worse. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you. Okay, let's go with this. Okay.
That's good. I was just reading up on how to change settings and things. So that's...
I feel like my good old days working in a call center back again.
It's very cool.
Right? It's a good luck. It's very 1997 chic.
Yeah. Well, I've never worked in a call center. I kind of did. I worked for the job center, put in vacancies on the computer, but I never had the whole sort of get up.
It's an experience. It's amazing what people will say to you when they can't see your face.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. I worked at a collections call center, so I think that made things a bit worse for me.
A what one?
A collections call center.
Like bailiffs.
Yes, well, it was for cell phones, so we were calling people who were delinquent on their cell phone bills.
On the cell phone they were delinquent on?
Yeah, usually. Usually we would just cut it off, so when they would try to make a call, they got me instead of whoever they were calling, which they loved. They loved that.
Yeah. And they were very kind to you about it, I imagine.
There were flowers and it's like Valentine's Day every day.
Yeah. I might have to change my career then. This sounds good.
Oh, it's a gift.
So I guess being introverted, working from home, your dogs weren't that affected by the new routines. Was there anything else in your life that may or may not have changed, just kind of in your other daily routines, like going shopping or meeting with some of your friends and that sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I see my mom every week. We only live about half an hour away from each other, so I make a point of going to visit her. And for the first 2 months of lockdown, we just didn't see each other. We talked on the phone, but she didn't have FaceTime or anything else. So for 2 months, I only heard her voice. And then when I did first see her, we were like, can we hug? How do we engage now? And we kept still our distance. And even though I am an introvert, I do have friends. So
yeah, totally.
So not going out with them and not seeing them was a big change, and just trying to figure out, okay, so where am I going to walk the dog so I'm not going to run into people, and what time should I go to the grocery store so I don't see as many people. My husband started working from home, which was a big change, because for 8 years I had the entire house to myself.
Yeah.
From the time 8 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. So having somebody around, it was a big change. We had to really establish some rules as to how we were going to manage our work day, because he was accustomed to having a social work environment. I was accustomed to just sitting at my desk all day. So he would pop up outside my door and I'd be like, I'm at work right now. Like,
Yeah.
we had to establish, I'll see you in the kitchen, but
Yeah.
from this time to this time, pretend I'm not here. So that took some getting used to.
I think that's actually something that we still struggle with here. That again, even though both of us are introverted, I do just like to just sort of turn up and have a rant about something, and oh, you wouldn't see this thing I've just read on the news, and but then Joanna's like, I kind of need to work on this. Like, so can you?
You may be on a break, but I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to the point where she can say it really bluntly and just be assertive with it, and then that just solves the problem. Because I'd be like, honestly, you can just tell me to go away, and I won't take it personally.
I jokingly put a sign up on my door. We had so our office had sent out signs they were going to put up to say, like, this is a if you're going to enter, wash your hands and keep your distance. So I put that on the outside of my office door for a little while to keep my husband out. But
oh, brilliant!
No, we've gotten to a much better place. It's weird though, because so I work in training, and a lot of my work is done. I build e-learning modules, so I'm recording audio, and I have to coordinate it for when he's either out of the house for a while or he's not on any calls, because microphones are so good that they can pick him up in the background. So it's made a change to how I structure my day, where I can't just turn on the microphone and start recording. I have to see, where are you going to be out for a little while? Are you going to be around? Can you just zip it?
Yeah, it really tests your flexibility, doesn't it?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, because I remember reading about some people that I guess they call us the laptop class. And and there was interesting stories about people that live in shared homes, and then they'd have to negotiate new rotas for who could sit in the kitchen to work and when, and so that people aren't stuck in their room working all the time and all that stuff.
So I'm on the second floor and my husband was in the basement. So we had enough distance between us that we wouldn't interfere, but we recently had a flood in our basement. So now he's in the living room, which is, like right below where I am. So if he laughs or breathes too hard, like,
yeah,
toxic work environment.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like quite an interesting job, though. If a little difficult to work around.
It can be, but no, I do love it. I've been in training for almost 20 years, and I very much enjoy it.
Yeah. And how long have you been with your husband? Because imagine like having such a stark change to your routine, and depends on how long we've been together. That might have been
forever. We've almost 26 years we've been together.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we were just babies when we first started dating. But so we're past that honeymoon phase where I could very easily just be like, fuck off, I'm at work right now.
Yeah.
There was no sugarcoating it from the very beginning.
It does make things so much easier, doesn't it? I think when you can have that honest discussion, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't want to enter like a feedback session where like, I'm hearing you and I'm going to share with you. Or just get out of my face.
Yeah, I've never been that good at that anyway. So like, I've never been a diplomatic sort, really, I think, with that.
It's helpful when, yeah.
So as you kind of went through the pandemic and you encountered all these new situations that you've literally never had before in your life, at what point did it stop being weird, if ever?
It feels so normal now. Early on, I think I went to the liquor store and I walked in and I realized I forgot my mask. I was listening to an audiobook. I got really into it and I walked in, and it felt in that moment that I realized I wasn't wearing my mask, I felt like that dream you have when you're a kid and you show up to school naked. Like that's how it felt. And so now it's just become, I leave the house, I have my keys, my phone, my mask, and I head out. I'm happy to say things feel like they're getting a little bit back to normal. It's still have to show proof of vaccination when I go into a restaurant, if I do that, which I haven't done as often. But now when I see people on the street, when we're walking dogs, we'll stop and chat. We're not just waving from across the street. So it feels normal. I think I'm almost concerned of, if and when we get to the other side of it, when all restrictions are lifted and no more masks, I think that's going to take more time getting used to. than the other way around. Because going into it, it was like, I need to protect myself. This is what I'll do, and that's what I'm going to do. But now it'll be just kind of a weird, are you, aren't you, do you, don't you? How close do I get without my mask on?
Yeah, because I guess that when something's no longer mandated and there's no longer concrete rules surrounding something, it turns very much then into individual choice. And I think that's been quite difficult for people to get through anyway in life. You know, is it okay that I'm doing this right now and I'm not infringing on your needs, but also being aware of my own needs at the same time?
Yeah, and at first, I remember I guess, naively, when they first shut us down, it was for a couple of weeks. After, but a month later, I was going out and I was like, are we still doing that mask thing? Like, it was a question mark, where it's not anymore. And my husband, many years ago, spent some time in Japan for work, and they have where he was anyway, was very much ingrained in the culture that if you're not feeling well, you would wear a mask just so you can protect the people around you. And we talked about it at the time, being like, that's such a great idea, because here people will cough into their hands and then outstretch it for a shake. So I think that's one of the things that I may actually continue to take with me, is that if I'm out and about and I'm feeling not at my best, I'll wear a mask to protect the people around me. And if they're not content with that, then that's a them issue, not a me issue.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I kind of just how the point I feel with masks at the moment is, if I'm going somewhere where I think are going to be vulnerable people, then I'll wear my mask. Because I mean, we don't have any mandates here anymore. I mean, I don't. It's kind of, he's done it for the wrong reasons. There's no science involved in any of it. He's just, the whole pandemic, he's done whatever Boris wants to do.
We're over it.
Yeah. He's like, there's no pandemic now, apparently. So
it's done.
But I think that it's definitely got me thinking that if I'm going to be around vulnerable people, then people who are susceptible to things like the flu, then maybe it is something that I should probably do anyway, if particularly if they're old.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to, before my grandmother passed away, I would make sure that I got the flu shot before, and I'm not, I'm usually pretty cautious, so I wasn't super fussy about the flu shot before. But if my grandmother was 97, so I want to protect my grandmother, and if it's something that I need to do to protect her, then I'm willing to do that. I don't want to be the one who kills my grandmother.
Totally. and it's kind of, it's a decision that you can make individually for yourself, because you can weigh up the risks or whatever. I mean, I don't think there is really many risks with the flu shot, but that I know about anyway. But it's something, it's like a trade-off, isn't it? And it's like, okay, well, I could actually extend her life, even if it's a few months. It could be a comfortable few months, or it could be a horrible few months with the flu.
Yeah. I mean, it's, for me anyway, it was a small price to pay for that peace of mind.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess, what was your understanding of viruses and pandemics and all that stuff before the pandemic happened?
A Hollywood's version of it.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for a zombie movie and a virus movie, and I remember joking in early days that I was going to go online and see if I could find a hazmat outbreak suit from the Dustin Hoffman movie. It's like, that's how I'll protect myself. I mean, didn't help them in the end, but so I got it from there. And I mentioned my grandmother. She was very stubborn, very old school, and she was of the mindset that you got sick from going outside with wet hair. So I spent enough time trying to explain to her how viruses work that I had a pretty decent understanding of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I mentioned earlier that I worked in a call center. I think that is such a boilerplate of virus. Like, you could see it coming. Call center was just one kind of like a warehouse style building, and you could see as soon as someone got sick, you could see it coming pod by pod, and you knew it was just a matter of time that you were going to get it, because you're sharing all the same equipment, you're in the same office space, and you could just kind of count the days until you're like, oh, it's next pod over. It's coming.
Hope I don't get it too bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is interesting actually when you see those open plan offices and stuff, and particularly if there's air conditioning and that, and then you could like you say, it's almost like within 2 weeks somebody will be ill, and then their team will get ill, and then the wider team, and it just spreads, like you're saying.
Yes, and there's always that person who brags about never taking a sick day. It's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe you should.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I had a boss when I was working at NHS England who said that to me. He goes, I've got a kid and I have to support my family. I don't want to get sick, so can you go home, please?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're at home, it's just you being sick. You're here, now 6 people are sick.
Yeah. He's like, work from home if you have to, but at least call in sick or something, you know? We're not going to lie. So, yeah, I guess what was your lockdown experience like when we were first told to, we're not allowed to do anything for 2 weeks?
It was a bit nerve-wracking. Not so much not being able to go anywhere, because I mean, as soon as I make plans, I'm thinking about how to get out of them already. So that wasn't terrible, but there was that panic of, is this trip to the grocery store going to be the one? And there were still some questions about how it was transmitted. So I remember they were telling everybody to, when you get home with your groceries, wash your groceries, or leave your mail out for a couple of days to just make sure everything was off of it. So that unknown was a bit panicky. And then also not knowing, I'm youngish and relatively healthy. So I thought, if I were to get it, hopefully I would be somebody who wouldn't fare too poorly. But then you just don't know, right? Like young, very, very healthy people were getting it and getting ill and passing away. And then there were just the long COVID. So that uncertainty was more stressful than being at home. I mean, I like my house. It's where my stuff is. So it wasn't a burden to be here. It was just that constant leaving every time I left the house, it felt like I was walking down a dark alley with like a sack full of money waiting to get stolen. So it was a bit nerve-wracking. And even now, we kind of know a bit more. We know how to protect ourselves, but there's still that question mark of how serious could it be, or will it be if you get it?
Yeah, because even though the younger you are and the less comorbidities you have, the better chance you have. But you could still be that 1 in 100,000 people.
Yeah, it happens to somebody, right? I mean, if people didn't believe that, they'd stop buying lottery tickets.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's been one of my main concerns, is that that people are really bad at identifying risk and understanding it. So even though, say, the fatality risk of COVID is really low, but people don't understand that it's still a lot of people.
Yeah,
the raw number is
it's low when you compare it to 7 billion people. Any number is low. That's not a billion, but it's still there. And the mortality rate is so low, but the long COVID, that's 30%. Like, that's a much scarier number than anything else.
Exactly. I think there's a study coming out of Finland which they estimate that in their country alone there might be up to 30,000 people living with long COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, and there's someone I follow on TikTok, and she contracted COVID very early, before there was a vaccine, and they didn't really know what it was, so she wasn't hospitalized. And it's 18 months later, and she still can't go to the grocery store by herself because of how physically draining it is. And that, that's terrifying. That's your whole life, and for the rest of your life being affected by something that you hopefully could have maybe done something more to protect yourself against.
Yeah, and like you say, the whole Russian roulette behind it, and like your analogy of walking down a dark alley with a sack full of cash, and that is how it felt. Certainly in the first month, when we didn't have any idea about what any of this was.
I mean, in the first month, it felt like you just assumed every single person had it, and then you hope for the best. And now it seems like we're in a bit more of a saner place.
Yeah, and I think, like, it's the main thing that personally concerns me is sort of like, how is the government communicating it to us? I mean, I don't know what it's like in Canada, but our government haven't been very good about it.
Our government hasn't been amazing. In Ontario specifically, I think it was last year around Easter, we were told, okay, restaurants are going to open up for Easter, everything's going to be fine. So restaurants went out and they ordered product and they got ready to open up for Easter. And then a couple of days beforehand, they were told, nope, shutting back down. So it's just been so wishy-washy in how they've handled it. And, I'm of the opinion now that we're 2 years in. Like, I think we know enough to know here's how we have to start living with it, right? It's maybe time to stop being so afraid of it and stop locking down and restricting, but let's figure out how to move forward, because the people who are going to get vaccinated probably already have been. The people who are going to, follow the mandates and whatever, they've done all of that. I think we're at a place now where it's just time to move forward and figure out what is the new normal, because we just can't keep, waiting for, okay, what's going to happen now? Are we open? Are we closed? Are we not? We had vaccine passports for a while, and now they're saying that those are going to go away. And so it's just been very I don't even know anymore. I don't even know. A friend of mine invited me out to dinner, and I was like, are we allowed to do that now? I don't know.
In the UK, we call it a bloody shambles.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
So, you've spoken a lot about things like the fear and anxiety and uncertainty, surrounding the early days. And did you have any kind of coping strategies for that, or did you white knuckle it? Yeah, well, a lot of people did. Yeah,
I know. A lot of people did. Nothing conscious, I don't think. I didn't make any conscious efforts. I think I was already halfway there. I didn't have to change too much of my day-to-day routine because I was already working from home. My routine at home didn't change. No, I work out, but I have a home gym, so I didn't have to go out. So I didn't have to worry about, now what do I do that my gym is closed? And my touch points outside of the house were, grocery store, gas station, mom's house on a regular basis, where I could do what I needed to do in those spaces, or having the luxury of working from home. If at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, I wanted to go to the grocery store and not wait till peak time on a Saturday, I could do that. So I don't know that I made a lot of conscious efforts to cope, but having dogs certainly helped. They're big stress relievers. The news got a little out of hand. I described the dogs to go for a walk, and that would be that.
Sod this, I'm out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and also I think animals kind of help us gain a bit of perspective on things as well, because they don't know what's all going on, do they?
No, they're just happy as pigs and shit. Just living their best lives. I don't care.
I get mum and dad all day now. That's all I know and care about.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually surprised I have it, because our puppy, a 90-pound puppy, but he's usually scratching at the door to get to me because he's a bit of a mama's boy. So I'm actually surprised. But yeah. They keep me. They kept us sane, I think, because it was like, let's just focus on our work. Our family is safe. We're gonna handle our dogs, walk our dogs, and just try to keep some semblance of normalcy.
And I guess the other thing with having pets is that, particularly with dogs and cats, is they're very routine animals.
Yeah.
And you have to do certain things for them every day, which is unequivocal. It has to be done.
Absolutely. And you can't fall off the rails. My dogs can tell time. I don't even need clocks in this house. They know. I usually wrap up my workday around 4 o'clock, and at 5 to 4, I can hear them already stretching in the hallway. Like, oh, we're gonna go play. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, they're already getting themselves ready. So that has, get up, get the dogs out, get the dogs for a walk. That hasn't changed. So we didn't have the luxury of just kind of flopping on the sofa and wallowing, because there's two sets of eyes looking at you. Like, are we going to do this thing?
Yeah. You can't have that bottle of vodka now, Mum. We've got to go out for a
walk. Well, it's just walking. That's fine.
Yeah. You can stagger.
Exactly. Just don't drive me anywhere, but we can walk.
Yeah. So did you notice anything like that increasing during the pandemic? Like drinking or eating?
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely kind of drank a little bit more, stress ate a little bit more, but not I want to say not excessively, but not to the point where we're like, oh, this is a concern, right? Like, it was just like, we're home now. And usually on a Friday or Saturday night, when one of us would be out with friends, we're like, we're home, let's crack open a bottle of wine. So there was definitely a little bit of that, but I don't know if it was more stress, or we're home and we have this extra budget because we're not going out, we're not spending money on gas, we're not doing any of that stuff. So
might as well have a bottle of wine while we're here, kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah. But the other thing is, we can cope with things unconsciously without even realizing it. And I think if people are bored, it's quite natural to fill it with something.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah.
mean, we in the early Tiger King days of the pandemic, we thought
The Tiger King period.
Yeah, we thought that was going to be the end of it. I remember my husband and I I hope we've got time to watch the whole series before this whole lockdown is over.
Yeah.
But but we filled it with lots of movies, and we started watching old TV series on DVD that we bought. So we were filling it with sitting in front of the TV, a bag of chips and a 6-pack of beer. So.
Is there anything in particular that you'd recommend people to watch?
We watched the original Magnum PI series, and
wow.
I had never seen it before. So I bought it for my husband for Christmas. We started watching it, and it was highly entertaining. I'm not a fan of Magnum. No, it was the other characters that I liked a bit better, but it was definitely entertaining. And seeing, I love all those old cop shows when they didn't have the technology that we have now, where you watch CSI and they're just like half the episodes on their computer.
Yeah.
Or back in the day, they were like, "Oh, we actually have to solve a crime and figure out clues."
Bash some heads in, and
yeah, exactly. The good old days of crime solving.
Back when police were police and criminals were grateful.
Exactly. You could get away with anything if there was no camera.
Yeah. Actually, I saw a video on TikTok where a guy got arrested in a public library for recording, and then the police officer didn't realize his body cam was still on. And he was like, this was 5 fucking years ago. Me and all my mates, we'd have you on the ground, we'd be kicking your head in. Yeah.
Well, that's probably a good thing that cameras are everywhere now.
Yeah.
Definitely not a bad thing.
He's like, I'm so sick of you bloggers and coming in and making our lives difficult and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think he's going to regret that.
Yeah, I'm definitely pro body cam.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so what are your main concerns or worries going forward now from this point?
That's a good question. I kind of feel like maybe naively or what, that I think it's just really a matter of time before everybody gets it at some level or some degree. So, the worry is still a very small worry about if I was to get it, how would I come out of it? My big fear is the long COVID, but then the other fear is almost a fear just as much as to be asymptomatic and then just handing it like Oprah, right? You get some COVID and you get and not knowing, unknowingly passing it along. But I think there's going to be some anxiety around the early days when we do finally lift all of our restrictions, because then it does kind of feel like what is going forward looking like, did we just forget that these 2 years ever happened and we just go back to the way things were before? Or is there still some sort of, wear a mask if you're not feeling very well, still keep your distance when you're at the grocery store? Just there's some question marks around that. I've gotten to a place now where I'm more comfortable hugging again.
Yeah.
So that feels good. I'm not sure how many hands I'll be shaking going forward. And, probably buy some stock in Purell, but just being more aware. Whereas before, if I got sick, it was just like, well, it's just a cold or a flu, it'll pass. Now it's just being a bit more cautious.
Yeah, and I think because it's been going for 2 years, I think people are going to have a lot of lasting changes from that. Because usually if something happens for a couple of months, we go back to our old ways within a week, don't we? But this has been 2 years of sustained anxiety and worry, I think.
Yeah, and that's, there are some people, I think of young kids, right? My neighbors have not young, but young enough that at some point your memory doesn't extend beyond the 2 years prior. So, there are so many young kids who are just not going to know what it was like before. I walk past the school every day when I walk the dogs, and these 5 and 6 year olds are outside playing and they're all wearing masks and they're trying to, play and keep their distance. It's like that, they just can't.
That's weird.
As far as they know, that's what it is to be a kid. But me looking at that, I was like, oh, that's just looks weird. It just looks post-apocalyptic almost.
Yeah. And the other thing is, because we can't remember what it was like to be a kid at that age, and I guess how adaptable that children are.
Yeah.
Because they might be all right next year, and be normal.
Yeah, they'll forget all about it. They don't know.
Yeah.
They got their Spider-Man masks on. It's just another accessory. They're fine.
Yeah. I think my main worry with it is in terms of some of the development that children go through in terms of recognizing people's facial expressions and lip reading, like, 'cause we all do it naturally, and just getting to understand other people's emotions. And like children, particularly if they're like 3 or 4 years old, they're at a really crucial stage for that. And I just get a bit worried about, how much damage has that done to them.
That's such an interesting point. I never, excuse me,
Sorry.
I never thought about that before, because I saw someone had written an article, excuse me, that they had at a young age left a war-torn country, and they were kind of refugees and they weren't involved in the school system for about 2 years, but they're like, kids are resilient. I made it, right?
Yeah.
This doctor now, so everything's fine. So missing out on the education, I think, was such a big concern for people, but kids are fine. They'll get there. But that's such an interesting point. And I wonder how many adults have also not fared well. I mean, there's a lot to be said for hiding your facial expressions, where when you don't have to do that for 2 years and you can say or do whatever you want behind your mask. Now, when I get back to, right, like, it's gonna be interesting.
Especially for, I think that, most teenagers are little sociopaths, and and when they haven't had to do all of that social management, like literally what you just said, that I hadn't thought about that actually, that they're going to go into the adult world now, and for the last bit of their teenage life they've been covering their faces up, and
no poker face. They're gonna be terrible liars.
It's gonna be good for us though. It'd be like the invention of lying or whatever it is, that film. So did you feel informed or ill-informed throughout the pandemic?
It's interesting, kind of both, and over-informed and uninformed, because it's like if you just picked up a different newspaper or changed to a different TV station or different radio station, you'd be getting different types of news and different perspectives of it. That it was just that one source of truth. Trying to figure out which one was the right one, for lack of a better word, was a challenge, because some people were telling you to wash your groceries, other people were saying, no, don't worry about it, it doesn't transmit that way. So it was just an overabundance of information and not knowing which one was correct.
Yeah, and even in the scientific community, there was a lot of arguments going on between different professionals and stuff about what is the absolute truth here, what is the right thing to be telling people.
And it's tough, because I mean, it was so new in our lifetime. I know that there was a Spanish flu in 1918, but what a different world that would have been in. But now, every day we were learning something different. So what was right yesterday isn't right today. And some people just kind of still held on to what was right yesterday without kind of evolving with the news as we got it. So it was, but then you learn something new, and then they're like, no, what we said before was right. So it's just like, God, I wash my groceries or not? I don't know.
At what point did you stop washing them?
It didn't take long, actually, because I figured I was trying to, reason through it. Like if I'm cooking something, if it's gonna kill salmonella, it's gonna kill COVID, right? So it'll be fine. And if I'm, opening cans or boxes or whatever, I'll just wash my hands when I'm done, and then kind of moved on from there. So that didn't last. Very long.
We tried it once, and then we decided, no, this doesn't make sense. We're not gonna.
Just didn't care for it. Yeah. And like, by the time, and then I was like, what are the odds? What are the odds that particular thing, that can on that shelf, was touched by someone who had COVID, and while it was still active, I touched that, put it in my cart, and then immediately started. I was like, the odds are probably slim. So I think we'll be okay.
And I don't actually know at what point that it was figured out that it didn't transmit on surfaces. I can't remember how long we were into the pandemic with that. It was definitely within a few months that they found out.
It didn't take too long.
But our government was still telling people that it might. And then, so like you're saying, mixed messaging. And then how about masks as well? Like, what's your understanding of how effective? I'm not trying to trip anyone up with this, by the way, for the people listening. I'm just trying to see what sort of your personal understanding is.
It just made so much sense to me that and I think as we learned more about the different types of masks, I mean, early days, I bought the washable masks. I thought I don't want to have to keep worrying about it. But then it was like, if it's cotton, then it gets wet, then it's not really helping anything. But the actual, I guess, surgical masks, not the N95s, but those, if they didn't work, then, doctors and dentists wouldn't be wearing them. And if, I can tell myself if I'm wearing a mask and I sneeze or cough, it's not getting out there. So I had no question that it would be an effective means to limit transmission.
Yeah.
And to avoid getting, my face for somebody.
I think one of the things that's been hardest to communicate to people is this idea that the masks protect other people from you. That's been the hardest selling point of them, I think.
And I think that if they had flipped the script at the very early days and made it more selfish, then maybe people would jump on board sooner. Because I have very much learned people do not really care about protecting other people, which is sad. And not all people, of course, but it's the apathy, I think, was a bit disheartening.
It was, yeah, I have to say, because one of the big things going around at the moment is that masks are only 15% effective, but it's not clear as to what they mean by that. So do you mean that only stops 15% of the droplets, or do you mean that it only stops 15% of the people getting sick that would get sick? So like if your R number is 2, so like 2 people will get sick if you're infected, then is it only going to stop 15% of those 2 people getting infected? But like it's not immediately clear to me like what it actually is. And I don't think the pundits or whoever that talk about it online and in the news are clear enough about which masks are effective. So we know that the cloth masks now aren't as effective. The best mask you can get now is the N95.
Yeah.
But they don't differentiate that in their whining about it in their news articles and stuff. You know what I mean?
True. And it'd be nice if they kind of broke it down, the level of efficacy for the different types. I mean, I buy the boxes of the 3-ply double mask if I think I'm going to be around big groups of people, and and I guess it's funny to hear Canadians complain about masks. It's like, we live in like 6 months of the year, you're wearing a scarf. Like, this just saves you from having to wrap your face up in a scarf. But I definitely feel if I cough or sneeze within it, nothing's getting out. So if nothing's getting out, presumably nothing's getting in. So I'll trust it.
The worst of it isn't getting out at the very least.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it is, it's not traveling there's not as much, it's not going as far. And unless someone's standing right here, then they'll likely be safe.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, what I've kind of felt, I mean, in the UK anyway, is that they shouldn't have mandated it, but they should have done a better job of selling it to people and getting that individual responsibility. Because I think people should be wearing them. But that's your free choice to make, that you should be wearing it.
I agree. I mean, no, it's just if watching news and television has taught us anything, it's that people don't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
and you need to really market things and make it sexy and make it flashy.
Yeah.
And they went about it all wrong. As soon as you say you have to, all of our defiant teenagers come bubbling up.
Yes.
You tell me what I have to do. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Whereas, if it had a better marketing campaign, definitely would have gone further.
Yeah. I mean, because I'm naturally kind of, I think, wired to not like authority. I mean, I grew up as a punk rock kid. I used to dye my hair green. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
All the music we listened to was all the, question authority and don't know your rights and don't listen. Then they tell us, speaking of the wrong crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where it kind of teaches you that individual responsibility as well, to kind of do the right thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I just kind of feel like that's missing somewhere in society, or at least in education. Like, we focus on the wrong things in education.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because, like I said earlier, I watched a lot of, apocalypse movies and zombie movies, and in all of those, there's always the groups of people who get together to bear the apocalypse. and they have each other's backs. And at the time, like, watching The Walking Dead 10 years ago, I'm like, oh, that's really nice. And now I'm like, in 4 days, they become cannibals. Like, they wouldn't even
Yeah.
wouldn't even take that long.
Yeah.
I guess it's made me feel that unless it's your immediate social group, you're probably just gonna shoot first, ask questions later.
There is a lot of evidence in human history that is exactly what would happen. That we would eat each other. I mean, I think it was the Oregon Trail that.
Yes, the Donner Party. Was that the one?
Is that what they're called?
I think that's unless there's multiple groups of cannibals, which I wouldn't doubt either.
I know. I was thinking of something else that, like, the people who were traveling over the trail, the people who tended to die and not make it were single men on their own. So the people that would survive was the families. Yeah, and then unless you're part of the Donner Party, which I do kind of remember something about that they think they got cannibalized or something. I'll have to look that up after.
Well, I think it's like the age-old movie cliche of having something to fight for. So I could see that totally being the case. That if it's just you, at some point you get lonely and tired, and you give up. Whereas, if you've got other people who are relying on you, then it makes you more likely. Which I would hope would have translated into the situation that we were in, because a lot of the people who kind of fought against all those mandates were family people taking it home to their kids or parents or other loved ones. So just extending beyond ourselves would be a nice place to be.
Yeah, for sure. Because there's actually I think it was Mary Beard, the historian or anthropologist, I think her name was, but somebody asked her once, what do you think is, if you were looking for the evidence of civilization in, say, in a species or a race of humans, and you're looking for, what would be your evidence of civilization you look for? And people are expecting her to say things like tool use or clothing or just something like that, or buildings. And she said, no, a healed thigh bone fracture, because it means that, blew my mind. And she said that it means that somebody's taking care of that individual and they've nursed them back to health. And then that's evidence of civilization.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's the way we take care of the most vulnerable.
Yes.
And, and how you treat people when you know no one's watching.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And it all comes down to that. So
yeah,
it's been an interesting couple of years.
Yeah, I think that on all levels, the pandemic hasn't shown us at our best.
No, and I mean, it's such a negative way to look at it, because I think the negative was the minority. It's just unfortunate. They were a very vocal, very loud minority. So it's hasn't painted a pretty picture, but I mean, we're still here. We made it. Hopefully.
Yeah. Most of us have. Yeah.
True.
And I think, and it's come from both sides of the political aisle as well, but arguing about different things on the two extremes.
Yeah.
They've basically both been arguing for the opposite, and you've got the vast majority of us in the center, kind of like, what are you guys all arguing about? Let's just get through this.
It's true. It's like being a middle child, right? Like, just all get along, right?
Yeah.
Common ground.
Yeah, and that was kind of one of my motivations for wanting to do the series, because I was just kind of, I've just been watching a lot of podcasts and comedians on the podcast and things like that, and there's no people that are just going through this, they never have anybody on there or anybody in the news that has a normal perspective on it, and like, it's not that they don't have anything to say themselves, it's just that they've got a very unique experience.
It's true. I remember early days where they had, like mega stars talking about how they were dealing with the lockdowns. It's like, you're in a 10,000 square foot home on an acreage. Like, you're fine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're fine.
Yeah.
It's, that single person who's in a 500 square foot apartment and can't leave their house. Like, those are the ones who are struggling.
Yeah,
not you with your pool and tennis courts. You're okay.
Yeah. And your personal trainer you sneak
exactly. Yeah, your personal chef is there. It's tough. You got to cook for yourself for a few days.
One of my favorite moments, I think it was in the first year of the pandemic, when Nancy Pelosi snuck into a barber shop to get a haircut.
It's amazing the things that people really missed and gravitated toward. Like, I remember my husband, we just bought like a pair, my hair could just do what it's going to do. But his, like, oh, we'll just order some clippers on Amazon and I'll become your barber. So
Yeah.
we in the bathroom cutting his hair. So we figured it out.
Yeah, I'll cut my own hair because Joanna did try it. Yeah. Yeah.
I just throw it in a ponytail and call it a day.
Yeah. But yeah, Joanna tried it the first time, but because my hair got quite long, and then if it was just a case of clippers, it would have been fine. But with it so long, I thought I'd just do it myself. And
there you go. You're resourceful.
Yeah. And also,
it's amazing. Like, I remember as soon as things opened up, you know, and it was still kind of like a trial of opening things up. I was like walking to the mall and I saw just like parking lot was full, and I was curious. I head inside and like the nail salon is full of women getting their nails and toes done. It's like, really? That's
yeah.
That's what you missed? Okay, sure,
Yeah.
teach his own, whatever.
Because there were a lot of people in the protests in the early days shouting about how they want to get their hair dyed or get their haircuts and things. Priorities,
right?
Yeah. And I was thinking, are they just deflecting, or you know, they taking their stress and their anxiety and redirecting it to something benign as a way of coping, or is this genuine?
Is that like
they really
their
care.
biggest problem at the moment?
Yeah.
I split ends. Can we wrap this pandemic up?
Yeah.
Got roots.
Yeah, I don't care about anything else.
Oh, people are dying. Hospitals are full. Excuse you. Look at my cuticles.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then, do you know, this is why, like I said, you know, with Boris, that there's no science behind him opening up, right? So we've had this data come out publicly recently about the comorbidities. And, you know, like, I think I did a bit of a bad job explaining it on my channel, but on my YouTube channel, but it's basically the older you get and the more comorbidities you have, the higher at risk you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people kind of think that I'm saying, well, if you're young and healthy, you're fine, and who cares about the old people? It's like, no, I don't mean that.
No.
I just mean let's look after these people properly.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so what does Boris Johnson do? He opens up care homes so that anybody can go to the old people's homes, and like there's no checks anymore.
What?
Yeah. It's like, you know, these people are most at risk.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's how you know he doesn't have, like, our government doesn't have our health in mind. They're just doing the whole thing is about populism and just garnering votes. And
and that's where it really got sad. I mean, like, science is science, politics are politics, and you know, never the twain shall meet. But they met hard, and
yeah,
and I mean, I'm, you know, like we said earlier about being punk rock kids, I at my core don't want to follow rules, but if you can explain to me how it makes sense, like I'm not just going to follow a rule for the sake of following rules, but if you can tell me this is why and this is what makes sense and this is why we're doing it, yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
right. Like if it speaks to me and I can relate, I'll follow that rule all day long. But just to have no willy-nilly plan for having to do anything, no.
One of the things my mum used to say to me when I was growing up, which used to really wind me up, be like, Mum, why have I got to do this? And she'd say, because I said to.
Oh, my mom used to say that too.
Yeah.
No, I don't like it.
I wonder how much that influenced our desire for the punk rock.
Probably. Was that for one? I know it's not punk rock, heavy metal, but Twisted Sister, we're not going to take it. Like, you're damn right, we're not.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good outlet, to be honest, as a teenager. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to angry music, you didn't have to be angry.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, punk was, I think it gets so, maybe it's not underrated, maybe it's just my social group, but it was so underrated for having such a strong political message. Right? I mean, like the Clash, and especially the Clash, they were so heavily into politics, and then Rage Against the Machine was really about just know your rights, do what's right, don't be a dick for at the end of the, at the end of the day. Like, we'd all just live our lives, just don't be a dick. It'll be a much better place.
I think if I was ever going to write a book on leadership and followership, it would just say, don't be a dick. That'd be the title of the book.
That's right.
It's the key to life.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I know maybe Christians will call it the golden rule, do unto others, but at the end of the day, don't be a dick has a bit more of a ring to it.
It does, yeah. And I feel it works on more levels as well.
really does.
Yeah.
It really does.
Because it's just a chance for self-reflection, and you think, am I about to be a dick? And then you just think, actually, yeah, I probably am.
Right? Would a dick do this thing? Then don't do that thing.
Exactly.
It's a good litmus test.
Exactly. It's a nice rule of thumb to have. So, yeah, is there anything that you take for granted or took for granted before the pandemic, other than having your nails in your hair did?
Good question. It's gonna sound really sappy. I mean, my family has always been one that, whenever we part ways or we get off the phone, we always wrap it up with, I love you. And my husband and I are the same. And I never noticed it because my family had done it too, but it's kind of gotten me to a point where I want to take it beyond that and just share when I appreciate people, to let them know that I appreciate them, because you don't ever know if this is going to be the last time. So just being more grateful for the people in my life, more appreciative of what I have, because even though, thankfully I never got sick, and I know a couple people who did, but they fared very well out of it. You just never know. So just not taking the people in my life for granted and letting them know that I appreciate them and that I love them, and that they're important.
That's a really nice sentiment.
Oh.
Yeah, no, it is. It's I think it's something that we don't hear enough. Because I do worry that too many people are thinking in terms of like, oh, I wish I did this. I miss fast food, or I miss getting my hair cut, that sort of thing, and I took that freedom for granted. But yeah, I mean, you're totally right though. It's life is about other people and your experiences with them. Yeah. So with hindsight, then, what thoughts or advice would you share with your past self from 2 years ago?
Invest in toilet paper.
Yes.
Would have made a killing. Would have made a killing. I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I just was so lucky that because I worked from home and everything in my life was already, my routine was pretty carved out. I didn't feel such a dramatic change that I don't know that I would go back and say, do this differently. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't have an answer for that one.
No, that's fine. To be honest, it's quite a big question, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll probably think about it the moment on the stairs. I'll think about it later. But
yeah.
I think I got into some healthy debate in early days about things that maybe I wouldn't have, or I would have had stronger arguments than I did at the time. But yeah, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would what advice I would give me. Maybe you don't need to watch all of Tiger King in one sitting and put down the chips. But
yeah. I only managed 2 episodes of Tiger King.
I can't believe how hooked I got. I got so sucked in so fast. It was such a train wreck.
Yeah.
It's like a car accident. I didn't want to see it, but I couldn't look away either.
Honestly, I don't know how I stopped watching it, because like you say, it was compelling. Very compelling.
There's a second season, and they're coming out with a movie too.
A movie?
Yeah, Kate McKinnon is playing Carol Baskin. So
has he been let out yet? Because I can't remember if he was going to get a pardon or.
Oh, I can't remember. I don't think he has.
Yeah.
But I can't remember.
I'm getting my facts muddled up. I think it was Donald Trump saying that he would give him a pardon if he got elected.
That was probably crazy enough to have worked with.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got that's all the questions I've got for today. Yeah,
I hope I gave you something workable.
Yeah, totally. I think that was a really interesting conversation. I'll have to think, kind of process all the stuff we've spoken about, because it was definitely very interesting. But thanks so much for taking part.
Oh, it's my pleasure. That was fun.